We're here with Jason Kilar from Hulu. Jason, how's it going?
Hello, Kara. How are you?
We had a beautiful tour. We've had a lovely chat about where things are going, and let's talk a little bit about Hulu and what's happening on the service. So it's done a lot better than most people thought. It's sort of been one of these successes in Hollywood where there's been a lot of non-successes, essentially. What do you think's been important, sort of the key to the growth of the site?
I'd say the most important thing has been the user experience. There's a whole lot of other things that go into play, but really if you kind of strip away everything else, the user experience is ultimately the thing that matters most.
And what about that user experience? A clean site, everybody liked the way it looked, the ease of use, that kind of thing?
Yeah, our mantra is a couple of things, which is, one, it cannot look like Tokyo at night, so it needs to be clean, clutter-free, and simple and easy to use. Another thing that we actually had as a design principle was that my mom had to get it in 15 seconds or less, so I didn't tell her anything about what I was up to, and I sent her a link to the site when we were working on it, and I got a call from her later saying that she was loving it and loving Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and so that was sort of we knew that it wouldn't work unless my mom got it, and so that was a key thing, and you have to have the content. But the most well-designed, elegant user interface doesn't mean anything unless you actually have the content.
Content's been an issue, obviously. One of your issues is spending a lot of time with Hollywood people, convincing them why they should put content on your site.
That's right.
How difficult has that been?
So it was very difficult in the early days, so much so that I didn't actually spend any time actually talking to content owners while we were building the service, because I felt that it would do no good to actually go and talk with PowerPoint slides, and it was far better use of time to actually build the service. And so that's what we did. We built the service, and then at that point we actually had something to demonstrate. And the conversations have actually been much easier at that point. And so once people understand what we're up to and what our goal is, which is at the end of the day from a content owner perspective, we simply want to bring a lot more audience to their franchises that they could not get on their own. And we obviously want to monetize it better than anyone else. And so once content owners understand that, they tend to respond, and that's why we've gone from 2 content owners to over 50 in the last 18
Right.
weeks.
Now, one of the things that's important is that you initially started was the widgetization of the site, where you could embed things and send it all over the place. But the site itself has gotten a lot of traffic, surprisingly. What do you think is more important going forward, the ability to move stuff around or the ability for people to come to a central site?
It isn't an either or, and let me go into why. So I think we're clearly going to invest heavily in Hulu.com, and you're going to see a lot of enhancements and features coming on that. And if we're fantastically successful on that, we'll be very fortunate in terms of having tens upon tens of millions of people using the service. That would be a great success. But the reality is that in the U.S. alone, there's over 250 million users using the internet at any given point each day, and so we want to be accessible and interesting to those folks, and we want to be in the neighborhoods that they frequent in their daily web lives, whether it be on Yahoo when they're checking mail, whether it be on MySpace when they're having a chat, or whether it be on MSN, for example. And so all of those things are very important to us, which is why the widgetization, to use your term, was so important to us. So we've got over, at private beta launch, or I should say consumer launch a couple weeks ago, we had over 6,000 neighborhoods that we were in already because of the fact that we let people.
But the brand is actually becoming well-known, relatively well-known, especially in the early adopters and everyone else. It's not a brand doesn't have some resonance a little bit. Comparatively, I was surprised by how many people do know the site. Now, in terms of what's coming next, where do you see, online video is obviously exploding, but it's still difficult to monetize. What are some of the trends that need to happen to do that? Now, you're selling all kinds of advertising, letting people pick advertising, you're letting people have a lot more choice, more geographical. What has to happen in the online video space?
So I think a couple of things have to happen, and the good news is these things are happening. One is you got to make sure that the user experience is a great one. It's got to be something that when a user interacts with premium online video, that it's the kind of thing where it's a wow moment of sorts, where they tell their friends about it, or they tell their family and say, listen, if you miss Celebrity Apprentice, or if you miss Simpsons, or
good God, if you miss Celebrity Apprentice, the end of your life.
I'm not watching that specific one myself, but you need to have that kind of a customer experience, because if it's not great, people won't give you the time of day. People are very discerning, and so the good news is the technology is there. I wish the bandwidth were even better in terms of the industry in the U.S. But I think we're doing a pretty good job in terms of the amount of information that we can send down the pipe. And so that has to be there, and the good news is that in general that is there. You also have to have an advertising industry that recognizes the value in that experience, and with that you need a sizable audience, and we've been fortunate in that we've got over, as of when we launched it, consumer launch, we already had over 5 million users using the service, and so So it becomes a situation where we're actually relevant now to advertisers that want to get into and in front of a demographic that's very hard to get in front of. And so I think that those two things have to be there. And then the third thing you mentioned was you need to constantly innovate to make sure that the advertising is relevant and interesting and, quite frankly, on users' terms. And so that's why we're doing things like where you can watch a theatrical film trailer instead of having commercial breaks during a TV show and things like that.
Yeah, there has to be much more innovation in the ad space online. It seems like nobody's really they're doing a lot of copying of things that may have worked on television, but it's a whole different experience. Okay, last question, more content. Obviously, that's really critical. When are you getting Law & Order, for example?
Law & Order. So a lot of this stuff will be coming, and so
as soon as you bash Dick Wolf over the head, right?
No,
you're going to take him to the Ivy, pet him.
No, not that. I'll just demo the service for him so you can understand it. So we quadrupled the content lineup in the last 18-19 weeks, and we're on a trend to do the similar types of things going forward. So you should expect to see a lot more feature films, a lot more television shows, a lot more sports, and a lot more news. So that you're going to see a lot more stuff on Hulu going forward.
Do you think the writer's strike helped you? There wasn't a lot to watch. I mean, there was not a lot of news stuff, but people were sampling other things.
The fact that it didn't go on forever helped us in that you're right that there was this moment where for a couple of months people were like, there's not so much on broadcast, so let's see what else is available. And so that helped us quite a bit. Now, if that would have gone on for another 6 months, I think people would have really gotten angry at the industry overall. And so we definitely benefited during that time frame. And the good news is it put a finer spotlight on the opportunity online. And so I think that it was for reasons that had nothing to do with us. We happened to be sort of something that people looked a lot at and basically had a lot of conversations about. And so that's very helpful from the standpoint of content owners. So that it all worked out pretty well for us.
So last question. Are you a media company or are you a technology company? You're like Reese's. Is it the peanut and the chocolate or the chocolate? What are you? Because that is an issue in Los Angeles.
So it's a great question. We're a customer company, and I don't mean to be trite, but no, not being trite in any way, which is like every decision we make always starts with the user, and the reality is that we quite frankly leverage more technology than media with regards to serving the user. So if if it's forced to choose between those two things as you lay out the question, we're a technology company. The vast majority of people that work at Hulu come from a computer science background, and that's by design. And so I think that if anybody were to stop by like you are today, and we just showed you around the office, you'd feel that this is more of a Silicon Valley startup as opposed to a big media company. And I think that's right. That's appropriate for the mission of Hulu. But really, in terms of how we make decisions, it is a user-based decision. It's not a technology or a media-based decision.
Excellent answer. So you're neither. Both. All of it.
Everything.
Great. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Kara.